Good evening. I would like to welcome you all to the Borough Council meeting this evening for November 10th. Before we start with our moment of silence, I do want to make a motion to allow Mayor Sean Schultz to attend by Zoom. Looking for a second for that.
Second.
I have a motion seconded. Anyone have any comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Welcome, Mayor Schultz. And so we're going to start tonight with our moment of silence and pledge of allegiance to the flag by Councillor Hicks.
Good evening, everyone. So in about 16 hours, we're going to be celebrating, if my math is correct, the 104th recognition of the end of hostilities of World War I. President Wilson recognized that date as Armistice Day. Is evolved into what we recognize as Veterans Day. And I'm a big fan of recognizing public service. We have some of the best public servants in our community here tonight. Susan does a great job of recognizing them. I think it is appropriate to recognize a subsection of our public servants who are veterans. We ask them to do a lot. Memorial Day is more a recognition of lives lost. Veterans Day is more of an active recognition of those who are in our community. We ask a lot of our veterans. Most of them are really young, and fighting wars overseas is a very, shall I say, very disorienting event, and can affect people's lives forever. We all probably know a veteran in our family, friends, certainly neighbors in our community. So take the next few moments. And I also should say, suicides by veterans is considerably above normal demographic and age considerations, and that's true for men, women, the whole spectrum. And so that's reflective of the fact that the effects of serving in that capacity can be pretty traumatic. So take the next 20 or 30 seconds to think about maybe how you can reach out and support somebody and contribute to the success of a veteran that's in our community. And now join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And since our secretary is out today, I believe that Assistant Borough Manager Owen is going to is going to do the roll call.
Mr. Crampsey?
Here.
Mr. Hicks?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Landis?
Here.
Ms. Mellon?
Here.
Ms. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Stubbe?
Here.
Mayor Schultz?
Here.
Ms. Fisher-Henson?
Here.
Mr. Powers?
Here.
Great. We are going to move on to our presentations for the evening, and we're going to start with the first one with our fire department recognition for Fire Chief O'Donnell, and from the county, Justin Shawless, I believe, is going to be taking the lead on that.
Thank you, Council, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to come and present this award to Chief Dave Grimes, who is currently serving as the Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator for the Borough. Pennsylvania Title 35 provides the authority for 48 hours of online training, totaling well over, all said and done with all three levels of certification, 60 hours of classroom and 127 hours of online training, which is no small feat considering Chief John must gain all of these fire certifications and everything else, in addition to running calls. So this is no small feat in addition to his fire duties. So on behalf of the citizens of the Borough, Borough Council, Chief Mayor, present you with your certification.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Our next presentation will be from the Downtown Carlisle Association with an update from Executive Director Stacy Gould.
I just want to say thank you. You really, that's was quite comprehensive, and it really sounds like you've hit the ground running. So welcome, and we're glad to have you.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that I do follow you on Facebook, and I see the posts, and your excitement shows now, and there's a human feel to a lot of the things that are coming through more than I think previously, and I can tell the excitement and joy of the work that's being done. So it comes through even in just a still picture and a little text, because I know that you mean it. So you're doing a great job. Great, thank you. All right, our next area is opportunity for citizens and visitors to be heard. Are there any folks in the audience? And I know that there might be some folks that might want to make some comments when we're discussing the bike and pedestrian discussion. So I think that's okay for them to discuss that, like bring comments after that. Is that all right? While we're actually, yeah. Are there any other on Zoom that would want to discuss just general comments right now? Or?
We are having the podium mic is not working, so we may have to grab, if someone talks on the podium, we may have to grab a microphone there. That's the only.
Okay, all right, great. All right, well, we will move on to our consent agenda. The following is a list of routine items which do not appear to be controversial in nature and which probably do not require additional discussion. They can be acted on by one motion in the current form. If discussion is desired on any particular item, any member of council or the public may request the item be removed from the consent agenda, and that item will be considered separately. Are there any items that council wants to extract? Any from the audience? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
To
approve the
yes.
consent agenda. Sorry.
I didn't even finish the statement either. Second. Second. Motion has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And so that takes care of everything on the front and back of page 1. We are going to move on to our regular agenda. Assistant Borough Manager, do we have any tabled, continued or recurring items? No. Okay. We're all just trying to get through tonight because they're all in new positions. Reports from elected officials. For the mayor's report, I don't know if I should take all 3 of these, or Mayor Schultz, are you going to take some of these, or how would you?
I can handle the first 2.
Okay, do it.
Sure. Just notifying council and the public that I am issuing a couple of mayoral proclamations, appropriately so. The first one is a proclamation for Small Business Saturday. I am proclaiming November 26, 2022, the Saturday after Black Friday, Small Business Saturday. Of course, as we all know, and as DCA supports the small business community and the downtown in our borough is vital, the backbone of our community. It supports numerous jobs and families throughout the borough. So we want to encourage everybody to get out there each and every day to support the businesses throughout the borough, but especially on Small Business Saturday on November 26th. Secondly, I'm issuing a mayoral proclamation, as we have in the past, proclaiming November National Native American Heritage Month. And this is particularly poignant in our borough as we sit upon the traditional and unceded territory of the Susquehannock and other indigenous peoples who stewarded the land for generations, along with the historic atrocities that occurred during the time of the federal Indian boarding school system, including right on our border, the Carlisle Indian Industrial School. So it's an opportunity for us to make some amends by recognizing the incredible history and culture and how our nation has been significantly and positively influenced by Native American and indigenous peoples throughout this country, and especially here in Cumberland County and Carlisle. So throughout November, we will be celebrating Native American Heritage Month, along with the rest of our nation, as has been proclaimed by President Biden. And that is all I have. If you'd like to take the, I know an issue that's near and dear to all of our hearts, but especially the Deputy Mayor, you want to lead the discussion on pedestrian and bike issues in the borough.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for taking the initiative on those two proclamations. So this is I believe, the beginning of a discussion, and working with our staff, our residents, our council. I am a big advocate for being able to navigate this town in many different ways, no matter if you have a vehicle, feet, a bike, a wheelchair, a stroller, a scooter, a skateboard, anything. I think that those are, if we look at the folks that are most vulnerable, and we make our community safe for them, then it actually makes it safe for everyone else, and it benefits everyone. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is, and this is just observational, so I really I didn't have all the data, but it just seemed like we were getting more notifications of pedestrian and bicycle accidents in the borough. And the thing that happens with that is that, yes, as council, we might know about it, but I don't always understand the context of it. And I think context is always extremely crucial. So is it happening in certain locations? If it was, a vehicle's fault, what was the situation? If it was a pedestrian or a bike that, made a misstep, then what was that situation? Additionally, so I work at Dickinson, and I see how pedestrian centric it is. But I also saw and this, I don't know about this accident, so this is again observational. There was an accident right at Bosler Library recently, so I don't think a pedestrian was involved, and yet there are always people around there. So also just general accidents that are in these high pedestrian or bike activity areas have the ability to turn into something much more, because a car is a steel structure, and it's designed to keep the people inside of it safe. It is not designed to impact a human being and keep them safe on the outside. And so that's where this is where my discussion really was starting. I'm just going to go through a couple questions in general, my ponderings. And also I did reach out to a couple folks, especially folks within our Climate Action Commission that are looking at transportation, Life Cycle, who works to get low cost or free bikes out to any folks in town here. So there might be some folks on Zoom that might want to have some discussion afterwards, because I do want to make sure that we hear from perspectives of residents and thinking about how we can improve. So a couple other quick things. I would like to look at, when I kind of brought this up, looking at it holistically. So a lot of these things also benefit, like our climate action plan, our vehicle miles traveled, lessening our vehicle miles traveled, but making it, that's only going to work if people feel safe and comfortable to be able to do that. And how far can they go? And also the vibrancy. So we have our DCA representative here, but the vibrancy of downtown and who wants to go downtown and how comfortable they feel walking around. I did hear some concerns about, at least from one person, for I think the Spooky Saturday, when kids were all over that, even just some right-hand turn or right turns on red, some things like that, when there's a lot of people there, it can be contentious. I looked at the crash map, which I think we have here. These came from PennDOT to show where accidents for pedestrians and bikes are happening. And again, as an observation for me, it's on a lot of PennDOT roads. So, and my education from being here on council for a number of years is that is always a roadblock. That it's hard to do things that we feel we want to do when we have to go through hurdles. But I do think the hurdles are worthy, even if they're time consuming. But unfortunately, they're also financially problematic. So in town here, College Street, Walnut Bottom, High, Hanover, North, Spring, those are all of our PennDOT roads, I believe. Am I missing any? I think that's all of them. Wagoner's Gap.
Yeah,
Yes.
Wagner's Gap,
Yes.
portion of College.
Portion of College, B Street. So so that's why when you're looking at this map and you starting to think about where those some of these accidents are, you can see the overlap of PennDOT roads. And a couple other quick things, and then we can get some information from staff. We have had, I've at least been in meetings, some of them being council meetings, some of them just being meetings with staff about better safe routes to school, specifically B Street and Wagoneers Gap. We tried to push for a speed reduction, and PennDOT did not approve that. And we also had a meeting about truck traffic downtown and how to mitigate concerns, plan to look at, some things that aren't in PennDOT's approvals, as in turning limits and things like that. So again, these can be problematic for pedestrians and bikes, but also makes our town more welcoming by not having sounds drown them out. And the last couple things I will just bring up are just some comments that I've had when I posted actually about the Climate Action Commission doing their outreach meeting on multimodal. One resident, Aaron Markin, had mentioned that they would love to see a safe crossing from Thornwald Park to the Moreland neighborhoods. We live in Chapel Hill, and my 5th grader wants to ride to school. And although I let him, I hate that there isn't a safer direct route for him to get to and from school. My 8th grader crossed Walnut Bottom near Thornwald each day last summer to get to camp at Dickinson. It's great for them to grow independently, but we would love safer ways for them to do that. I did map it, and it's 0.7 miles from the 5-point intersection all the way up to Belvedere, and there is no other crossing. So that's 0.7 miles for anyone that doesn't want to have to cross that road to our beautiful, beautiful park, right? And you should want to go to it. Karen Griffith also had messaged and said that she's almost hit daily at the square. That she liked the midsection and cross. And she recently noticed that lights at the square have no countdown, so it goes from walk to a red hand. She said that's been the last 3 weeks or so. And she's noticed as she slows down, or sees other people that aren't able to walk as fast, that's where big concerns happen. And one more, Jennifer Moyer had said, is there a way to make crosswalks better, meaning the light for vehicles stay red while the pedestrian lights is on, so you get that lead. Twice this weekend during the event, I forget which event this was, cars were turning when families were in the crosswalk. I think that was actually the spooky Saturday. And I will just say, to close my portion of this, is that if you don't ride, I would say try to ride on one of those safe routes to school in the morning when all the cars are dropping off their kids, and see if you would feel comfortable riding with a child on our street. And that's why students unfortunately learn to ride on the sidewalks. So that is my overarching backstory, but also we would like to look at the snapshot now, and also I think we have 3 years of data that we pulled.
I want to touch on just something, and I normally don't speak during this time, but today I saw something and it was really disturbing to me. I was at the corner, or trying to get to the corner of Pomfret and Hanover Street, and there was a big 18-wheeler, semi truck, whatever you want to call it, that literally was over the crosswalk, right? So it was causing cars, and it was during lunchtime or almost lunchtime. So it was causing cars to have to slow down. Some of them weren't able, having a hard time turning or whatever. Well, when the light turned for him to go, and he was on Hanover Street, I didn't realize that he had his turn signal on. He had his turn signal on to turn right onto Pomfret Street, and he could barely make the turn. So he was almost on the sidewalk on the corner there. There was a car that, and it was in front of the parking meter, but there were cars there. It almost hit numerous cars, and because of that time of day, which Pomfret Street is busy anyway, but because of that time of day, there were a lot of cars that were trying to go across and had to find a way to back up and back up and back up so they wouldn't get hit. That concerned me because it could have hit the cars that were parked there. But had there been somebody trying to cross the street, would hit that person too. And I was just wondering, and I don't know because I don't pay attention to all the signs on the street. I just live on it. Um, are the trucks, the big trucks like that? I know there are certain streets that they should not drive down. Is Pomfret Street not one of those streets? It should be if it's not, because that is not a very, it's not a very wide street, and it's also a very busy street.
Right now, there's no prohibition against trucks traveling on Pomfret Street.
I think there should be, or at least after today, maybe think that there should be.
I'll try to make this brief. Thank you for bringing this issue up. I think it's near the top of my priority list, if not explicitly on my goals for next year, which it's tough to narrow down to 3, but certainly in the next several years. And I look forward to thinking more about this as we complete a strategic plan, which will be great. My general, first I'd like to echo the fact that in our effort in Climate Action Committee, we're going to be taking a very hard look about ways of encouraging more multimodal transportation, and dead center in our ability to do that beyond infrastructure changes. Thinking about different traffic patterns is safety, and I have joined a few other council members in asking our borough manager to keep us informed on a little bit more detailed basis of these subset of things that happen in our community, bicycle, pedestrian incidents, because I think it is going to be increasingly a priority for us to figure out a way to make it safer. Because if people don't, we could have the best bike paths and signage in the world, but it's not going to do anything if people don't feel safe. I look forward to good ideas. I'll add just because it's coincidental and relative to the discussion at the Eastside Neighbors Association meeting last night. There were very different public servants who observed, for different reasons, thinking about ways to allow people who don't have access to personal vehicles to do their chores in a safe manner. And unfortunately, a lot of them borrow shopping carts from places they shouldn't. But the bottom line is we have a very large portion of our population that depend on walking to live. And if we can make it a little bit easier by providing a mode for them to get their goods back and forth that is consistent with our goals in the Climate Action Committees to increase pedestrian and bicycle access and reduce vehicle miles traveled, but it gets to multiple goals I think we need to reflect on in the next few years. And so I look forward to a much deeper discussion on how we can improve this. Thanks.
I guess I'll just offer, I think the borough and our staff do a nice job interacting with PennDOT. I love, over the next year as these conversations continue, finding ways to work with them, because looking at that map, right, Hanover and High are, at least for bicycle incidents, two of the major issues. So I'd love, for us to have a dialogue with them on as the state law changes or may change for protected bike lanes, or even better protections for bikers with the car doors if there's any room on those streets to do some things. Because I know even with on-street parking on both sides, it still seems like pretty wide, at least on High Street. So I just wanted to put that out there. You know, if we can keep PennDOT engaged and keep hammering away to try to soften them to help us out where they can, I think that'd be great.
So I know that Jared had worked on some documents in Brunswick. Would you maybe be able to give a quick overview of that process, and if we would ever consider something like that, what steps we might take?
I can
Thank you.
try to. Brunswick had a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee that was created by the council, and they grew frustrated. And if this is obviously recorded, so maybe somebody will see it someday. But you know, in my opinion, they grew frustrated with their inability to provide actionable recommendations. So they would have monthly committee meetings, and citizens would come to them and they would say, you know, this intersection's bad, or we wish there was a sidewalk facility here, or my kids feel unsafe going to school, and they just couldn't do much about it. You know, there has to be there has to be a way for them to provide a recommendation to the council so that they could work through their capital improvement planning and sort of build in facilities for budget recommendations. It wasn't just facility planning; it was also, you know, education and enforcement. We looked at a range of different issues. The planning process was basically to tune up an old bicycle and pedestrian plan that was adopted in 2004. So we were doing that in the last couple of years. I worked for Brunswick, and it took about 2 years to complete. It was, again, I had the committee working on it. You know, they're citizen volunteers, so they didn't dedicate all their time to it, but you know, there was a lot of interest. And I had a couple of interns helping me out through the planning process, and you know, again, my bandwidth was sort of limited, you know, in doing other things. But I think we had a robust stakeholder process. You know, we reached out to different parts of the town for neighborhood meetings. You know, we did a sort of survey campaign, paper surveys and digital surveys, so that we'd reach you know, everybody, analog and digital people. And those stakeholder meetings were pretty neat. The reason we did them in specific parts of the town was because they had fundamentally different things happening. They had different users, different trip generators, and they had different wants and desires. So, and each meeting had totally different context to speak about. And we'd have different people show up to the neighborhood meetings. So if they saw that we were having one in the southern part of the town, then maybe they just show up to that meeting, and they weren't very concerned with, you know, regional contexts where they're taking long, you know, long scenic travel routes. The culmination of all that was these paper maps that I did. I did great big paper maps, and we had, you know, a blue pen and a red pen, and it was, what was it? Blue for bike and red for pedestrians, and we had a pedestrian map and a bicycle map, and I did 3 maps for every meeting, and I digitized all those, and I rated them, you know, the different considerations based on a scoring matrix that I wrote up. You know, how do we make decisions with all this data? Maybe Councilor Hicks likes this, but you know, there's tons and tons of data. And so when you go through these stakeholder processes, which is the ethical planning practice, you know, you ask people what they want for their town or their borough. You have to have a way to rank things, you know. So we came up with a ranking system that I wrote up, and then I gave it to some poor intern to synthesize all the data. And we wrote up a nice plan. and my understanding is, because I check back every once in a while, not because I want to go back to Maine, but I like to see how things are going. Uh, you know, uh, the Bike Ped Committee seems like they have a lot of positive momentum um, through the plan, and I'll tell you, Brunswick mostly was into the bike ped planning thing, but not everybody, not all the counselors. But when we told them that we reached out to everybody and we tried to come up with an equitable ranking system that catered to all the districts, because they weren't at-large counselors like you all are. We had 2 at-large counselors, and then they had districts that they'd sort of, duke it out for. Everybody raised their hand to approve it, the plan, which was great. And again, 2 years, a couple of interns, a lot of public meetings. It's a lot of work. It's a totally different thing to maybe consider, one bad intersection or a couple of bad, spots in town where you're thinking about just that specific geography, to what we did, which was the whole town. So that's that.
I appreciate the thorough overview, but I do think that that's sort of where I am. Is it's not that's proactive, right? And right now we're reactive because people are telling us this intersection, and it's only voices that we hear. So there could be other places that we're unaware of, or other concerns that we're unaware of. So we're only getting certain information. So even my own, viewpoints are only my own viewpoints. So, uh, Mark or Chief, are there other perspectives that you have on this general discussion? I mean, this is a work in progress, obviously, but I mean, you're Chief, you've seen the reports and things for accidents. I wasn't sure if you do see any sort of uptick, or is it just?
It's not that there's an uptake. It's just if you're being more aware of it. I believe that if we need to go on an education process, we've got to educate. We've even done it with the students at Dickinson, to pushing out don't look at your phone. When you cross the street. And bicycles, an education process. And there's probably some ideas that we can come up with to better facilitate a safer area to bike and walk. But it's going to take an effort on all of our part and enforcement is just such a monicum of everything. That is such a small part. Um, and the reality here is that we have a lot of places, and according to the Constitution, one of the places the Constitution have a right to park. And so the one unalienable right is the right to park. you know,
Well, I guess I was also just thinking of not just not I wasn't actually thinking very much of the enforcement, but that is a crucial part of what you do. But also, I mean, you go out to the accident scene, so it was also. I don't. I mean, I did look at the maps, but I wasn't sure if there was any particular space. I mean, I know that we had 2 pedestrian and a bike accident around Penn and Hanover recently. So those were the 2 that were in a general location, but it was more of the reaction of accidents and things like that.
as I learned a long time ago, an accident is the ultimate violation of the vehicle code. Whenever you see an accident, look at the vehicle code, and someone did something that they shouldn't have done. And generally speaking, when I speak about education and enforcement, looking at things, if you look at it from that standpoint, other than act of God, it's generally someone messed up in the vehicle code and did something. And and like I said, what you're seeing is not necessarily an uptick. It's just that you're noticing it more, and we've had some horrific ones where pedestrians stepped off the curb or weren't in crosswalks, and will bring your attention to that. Um, but it happens, weekly. But it's a matter of to what degree. I'm sorry for not giving you a good answer.
I want to make sure everyone's voice is heard in this discussion. So yes, go ahead.
Um, look, when I look at social media and following things that happen with pedestrians but particularly with bicyclists, um, there is a portion of our community that does firmly believe that bicyclists don't have a right to share the road with motor vehicles, and I don't really need to caveat that. I mean, there is a belief that, well, why are bicycles making access to this road harder for me? We have to do something about that. There's a responsibility across the board. Everyone who rides on a wheeled vehicle has a responsibility, but the very notion that bicyclists don't have a equal right to have safe access to the road is something we completely have to change people's attitudes. And lastly, I would say, Susan's tired of me asking when the police are going to get on bikes to do patrols, but one of the things I think, I don't interpret this as I don't want to put anyone in harm's way, but my belief is if the police did patrols not in uniform, they would get a little bit more perspective of the slight terror that some people have in driving around town and seeing how extra cautious you have to be to navigate in a beautiful town. And I'll leave it at that. I think there's a lot you might be able to learn. If somebody sees someone in a uniform, I think they're going to be a little bit more deferential. But get out and about without a uniform and see how you feel about things. Thanks.
Mark, if I may call on you and Jared, I know that during our team meeting with the chief and Andrea, and the two of you were involved in with me, we also shared some concepts as far as things that we think that we could do, like at the intersections and so forth of High and Hanover, for example. Could one of you please talk on that?
Well, we talked about a couple of things. One is, adjusting the signals, as was mentioned earlier, for leading pedestrian acts to allow a pedestrian to start in the crosswalk before the green light comes on for someone turning. That does require PennDOT approval of the traffic signal plan, and we have discussed it with them, and there's a lot of roadblocks associated with that. Staff, when they look at infrastructure projects and activities to occur in a given year, we go to the manager and we make suggestions regarding that. But there isn't anything as comprehensive as what Jared had mentioned, where here's the plan and here's the priorities. For instance, we do paving and we put bump outs in at the intersections, but that's just as we go along, as opposed to something more comprehensive.
Just, I think, two quick things, and then I'll stop talking. This might be for Jared and for Mark. Is there technology out there? I know we do car counts in different parts of the borough. Is that the same technology for bikes where they lay out, I don't know what it is, but it looks like a rubber tube, and they would be able to count how many bikes go across it in a day? Is that the same technology? Is there not technology like that out there to count how many? I'm just trying to think if we wanted to map the borough. Obviously, maybe not now and not in the winter because those bike routes will be down. But in the spring, is there a way to capture that so we kind of know where the high traffic biking areas are?
There is technology for that. It's usually kind of expensive. We looked at earlier this year. We looked at streetlight data, which basically follows cell phone providers. You can track cell phones basically, and we asked how granular the data is. Can we pick out a bicycle or a pedestrian from a car, or could we even look at single trip riders in town versus regional truck traffic and whatnot. That data was a little more difficult to parse out, and they were giving us estimates, per project. It was like 10 grand, for that kind of stuff, and it really didn't help. But they do have, you can put together a basic plan. If there's a, if there's an intersection or a road that you want to look at, you can just go out and do counts. Actually have a person out there and just do counts. That's the cheapest way to do it.
Great, thanks. And then the last thing, as Councilor Hicks was talking about being out on the road and kind of that terror. And I'm not volunteering Councilor Hicks for this, but I'm wondering in the spring, if we're talking about education, maybe if we could get with Stephanie, if we had someone with a camera. I know when I'm on social media and I see those videos of cyclists who have cameras and how close cars get to them or they get nicked by their rearview mirror, that's always, at least for me, pretty powerful of like, wow, that's really scary, right? So the visuals of that, Joel, maybe we can set up a camera on your bike.
I'll do it. Do you have a
One thing that I think that's also important to mention is not just walking during the day, but walking during the evening and night hours. Some intersections, when you're trying to walk at night, I feel like a lot of my friends don't feel comfortable walking they walk during the day, but not at night because a lot of the intersections are not well lit, and some drivers who are blindsided, or if you're not wearing not protective clothing, and some of the stoplights don't have as good as luminescence. Sometimes they run through, and it makes it a lot more dangerous for college students, and especially people who are more night owls, tending to focus and don't have cars. I know they like to get carpool during night and different hours, not during the day.
Yeah, sorry.
One other piece of this puzzle that hasn't come up is, I think it's relevant, and Jared kind of falls under sort of your planning, but part of safety is how far do I have to go to the things that I need to do, right? So if we're finding, people are driving or walking 2 miles to get groceries because they live in an area of town that doesn't have, what we consider sort of basic supplies, and becomes a planning solution. Perhaps somebody can walk more safely if we have certain businesses more spread out or more accessible in different parts of town. So you let me know, everybody. I mean, you let me know in what capacity, if the Climate Action Committee can be helpful, either as a supporting or primary forum. We do have a transportation task force, which I think is becoming capable of being very helpful in this way. You're on the committee, but I'm willing to make this pretty high priority in the near term, with a caveat that I think we need to really think about this comprehensively. It goes beyond one or two sections, which are important and we need to track, but I'd really like to think about what it is that we want to achieve in all of these activities, and then move from there and see where, as a group, the best way to tackle that. So thanks.
Well, I think this has been a very thoughtful conversation so far. I think that maybe we could get together, some of us, to plan out some next steps and keep this discussion going. But I do want to see if there's anyone else on Zoom that would have any, if anyone wanted to have any other comments. No worries if they don't, but they might have just fallen asleep. Oh yes, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, we forgot you.
That's okay. I'm hiding here. I know we're talking about discussing this further down the road. No pun intended. But I wonder if somebody might be able to speak to some of the relatively lower cost options of pavement, improved pavement markings. And I know we seem to wait forever to have High and Hanover streets repaved and remarked, but that could be a potential option to improve safety, of course. And as we look at the data that we have, unshockingly, it seems that most of the accidents are occurring at intersections where I understand that possibly improved markings can improve safety. perhaps Jared or Mark, if someone speak to that.
We do include on an annual basis funding for road markings. Next year's budget doubles that request for markings, so it's about 72K of a budget request to try to address some of those areas.
Thank you. That was all.
I don't think, so far we don't have anyone that wants to speak directly from Zoom, but we do have a couple comments on the feed. So Stephanie thankfully gave me her phone so I can read them. So Aaron Markin also had said the safe route to Moreland in front of Moreland is not safe. Lewis Malcolm, Maurice Burdabach noted that I said spooky Saturday participants and political protesters on the square encountered multiple traffic hazards on the square. Some involved oversized vehicles and trucks. He said he contacted Chief Landis after the events with the concerns about pedestrian safety on this occasion. No traffic safety or law enforcement were patrolling the square. That was his personal observation. And then Aaron Markin again said, I wonder if you could first focus on the main routes that young people would need to ride to get to our middle and high school. Many children are too close to school for buses, or there is a road that is too large that they are bused so they don't have to cross the road. The route that those kids need to go will be similar to the ones adults need to travel. Okay, so those are a couple of the comments. But I mean, I echo that. I mean, I think part of it is looking at these routes that we want kids to be able to safely navigate, and if they can't safely navigate, and that's also why that one meeting that we had, we did have some representatives from the school district, the transportation, and I think that's a wonderful connection that we should continue to build, and then we can have better dialogue back and forth rather than only in these moments of strain. So I know this was a long discussion. I do greatly appreciate everyone's willingness to have it and to get all the data that you were bringing to us. And I think that we can continue and follow back. So our folks that are listening and watching, they can maybe give additional information, or we can meet up with folks if they would like at some point. I can give Stephanie her phone back. Thank you, Mary. All right. Okay, so finally, we will move on to the rest of our regular agenda. Reports from committees. We have budget and finance.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have one item this evening. I move that Borough Council enact an ordinance amending the code of the Borough of Carlisle with respect to Chapter 66, tax collection, to provide for a waiver of additional charges for non-payment of borough real estate taxes in accordance with Pennsylvania Act 57 of 2022.
We have a motion from, sorry, I almost called you Mayor, Councilor Stevie, with respect to Chapter 66 tax collection. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this? Okay, this is a roll call vote. So our Assistant Borough Manager?
Mr. Crampsey?
Aye.
Mr. Hicks?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Landis?
Aye.
Ms. Mellon?
Aye.
Ms. Perry?
Aye.
Mr. Stubbe?
Aye.
Mayor Schultz?
Aye.
And the motion passes.
And that concludes the Budget and Finance Committee report.
Okay. On to Parks and Recreation.
I have one motion. So I move that council approve change order number 2 for the addition of 120 linear feet of 42-inch smooth rail powder coated metal railing at all areas of the skate spot of the Fairground Area Linear Park that has a deck higher than 30 inches from the ground. The total price for change order number 2 is $10,800, which increases Landserv Inc.'s total contract price to $756,614. And further, I move that council authorize any contract change orders needing prompt action in an amount not to exceed $10,000 each, to be approved at the discretion of the borough manager and brought before council for retroactive approval.
We have a motion for a change order for the Fairground Linear Skate Park. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Could I ask before we actually vote for Andrea Krause to explain a little bit about this change order and
Yeah.
give us an update on the project?
Sure. Okay, so just a brief explanation of why we need the change order. Basically, once the skate park features were poured, and if you go out to Lot A now, the features that are there now are the features are completed, but once they were poured, it became evident that the height of some of the features, not around the entire park, but the height of some of the areas we needed railing, especially anywhere 30 inches or over, and especially along the railroad side, because there is a gap of probably a foot or two. There's a gap, and then there's the fencing, and the fencing is probably just maybe a foot or two beside where the deck of the skate spot is. So that's why we need that railing, and unfortunately we didn't know that at the time of the design, but there is a 6-week, the metal fence would be fabricated, so at this point there's a 6-week fabrication schedule to get that made. So one of the things, I know a lot of people want the skate park to be open, but one of the things that we would want to consider is the safety of the park before we would open it up to the public. So that's a big thing. That would put us at probably mid December. Until we would get that, if we're on schedule with that. But just to say, we did start construction of the skate park on September 26th. So really, we're only at week 7. So that's pretty awesome, as far as speediness of a project. But there also are a couple other things that need to be completed this fall yet, and I do believe they're on schedule, and they may even be complete by the end of possibly next week. But we have a concrete access from the sidewalk into the skate spot. The water tap, I believe that was done. We need to put our signage up. We have all of the rules made. We talked about that at our last Parks and Rec board meeting, and we had some of the skating community there to talk with us. So we did complete those rules, but we are in the process of getting those rules done. Thanks to Chris Hoke, who helped. He's a graphic designer and a skateboarder, and the person who did the skateboard lessons in Memorial Park this past fall. But he is a graphic designer, so he helped design that for us. So that's in the shop being designed. Insurance. We do have insurance, technically. I did talk with Amy Barrier, and we do technically have insurance. Just some electronic documents have to go, and that's for Lot A and D. The footers still need to be poured for the lighting. The skate spot will be lighted. The footers need to be poured yet. And so we kind of have, I think at some point we need to make a decision whether or not, because there's the Fairground Avenue Linear Park, Lot A, and that's the skate spot. Lot D is that hasn't been started yet. That's the park area. So we have to decide if we should open Lot A, the skate spot, prior to Lot D, and kind of get some guidance from legal guidance and from all of you when we should do that. And so that's pretty much where we are in a nutshell. And then in the spring, so not the entire skate spot would not be done. In the spring, Land Serv would come back and they would do with water fountain installation, site amenities like benches and bike racks. And they'd actually put the light posts in. The footers will be in, but the light posts, so we wouldn't have lights until spring. And then seating and landscaping would be done in the spring. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I just want to add, so I attended the Parks and Rec Board meeting last week, and we had a pretty good crowd of users of the park skaters. And we had a great discussion between the board and the skaters there about the rules. I think we came to some pretty good compromises. And it was really great to see their engagement and their enthusiasm. I mean, they're very impatient. They can see it poured there. They want to get in there and get skated. But I think as we explain some of the safety issues and the things that still have to happen, they are understanding that it's just going to be a little bit longer till they can use it. But I think really good job overall on all of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other discussion before?
I would like to bring just something up, just in terms of our oversight. Really looking forward to this being part of my nearby community. This is going to be great. And I respect the ability to be agile in doing some of these changes. I'll just leave it for discussion, maybe with other council members. Incremental updates, 10,000 or less, can add up quickly to larger sums. I don't know if anybody might have a feeling of how many incremental changes we may need to make before we realize that that's a lot of incremental changes below 10,000 that, potentially authorizing by approving this. Is there any reason to think we might want to cap that before we approve a next sort of potential I have no idea how many potential changes, but the way I'm reading this is that there could be a bunch of actions under $10,000 that could come up that we would potentially approve retroactively, and whether we might want to consider a cumulative cap before we approve, if that makes sense.
Can I respond? And maybe Mr. Solicitor, you could help me out on that. I'm not sure, does state law dictate, I think there's certain bidding requirements so you can't bid a project and it's 30,000 and then just keep coming with $5,000 change orders. Is that correct? And I don't know what the numbers are. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
You can make changes that are consistent with the general scope of the project. So, and this is one of them. The concern is if you exceed either the quote limitation or the bidding limitation by change order that is for something completely unrelated to the project, that's the problem.
Great, thank you for that. So I think that makes me feel a bit more comfortable, but I think your point is spot on. And I think Andrea outlined what's outstanding, so I feel fine with this, but that's just my opinion.
Anybody have any other thoughts? We learned something, that wasn't in the initial plan, and there may be some things we learn along the way, and I don't want to then get them to get too many coming before we finally approve something. That's my only hesitant, and I think we'd have a really small potential amendment to this to make sure that we kind of limit that, even though I don't expect it to exceed a certain threshold. But if nobody else is concerned, then maybe I won't be as concerned.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, is there a feel that there will need to be a lot more change orders, or I mean, this is kind of open-ended, I guess, right? So I mean, is there any guess as to how likely we are to have more change orders to the project?
I guess I'd say no, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, but the skate spot, the skate spot that we don't have as much experience developing is pretty much done. The other portion is the park area, We have some experience with that. The only thing we don't have experience with is in the park area is the poured in place rubber. But our designer has done that before. So I would guess no, but I don't want to say whatever. But I do know that this language has been in other PBSs, so it's not specific. It's not meant to be specific just to this. Right. It is something just that is. We've had it in other PBSs.
If I may,
Yeah.
yes. So typically, what council does or has done in the past with very large projects, the connectivity project being one, authorizing the borough manager to do so in order to keep the project moving along. If there's ever a hesitation about any of the change order requests that come through, we vet them at the staff level, often bring them forward to legal counsel, and if I still would have a concern, I'd certainly run it by the mayor and deputy mayor. The language has been is consistently built into large projects, so at the same threshold.
Thanks for that clarification. I appreciate knowing that it's kind of in line with other projects, and I think I feel comfortable trusting in staff's judgment on this and their discretion to bring it forward if it kind of becomes an issue.
Yeah, I would also say, I mean, I've been sitting in on the meeting, so I kind of have a more of a sense of where we are in the project than perhaps the rest of council. But because we are trying to get this, especially the skate park, done, we don't really want to hold it up until the beginning of December for us to make another decision if there's something. So again, if it's not it's not the contractor making that. It's at the discretion of the borough manager and staff. So I'm comfortable with the way it's written.
Is it? I feel weird asking these questions, but is it legal, not only for this project but for other projects, if we were to approve something like this, borough manager as the change orders come in, to email council without us deliberating, obviously, but just as a FYI, here's one for 8,000, FYI, here's one for 5,000, and then if it gets to I think Councilor Hicks' point, if it gets up to we're at 80,000, council can call a special meeting, or then we're at least in the loop instead of them stacking up, and then we come to the next meeting and retroactively it's like, hey, approve 70,000. Is that okay as long as council's not, just as an FYI as we lead up to that next meeting? I see this listener not. Is that okay?
That is okay.
Is that a process we're comfortable with? Maybe I shouldn't say for everything. Maybe for this. And we don't have to decide that today, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always about understanding what's going on and I don't think there's any, in my personal opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with this this note of giving the borough manager discretion. I also think it's actually very helpful for us to have this discussion because I'm guessing no one else in our town really understood what these sorts of processes mean, and the fact that it keeps the work going, and that's a crucial part of it, of not slowing things down. And our skaters definitely are appreciative of that. So I mean, I think that I don't know if we have to make that choice this very second, but I think that could be some. I mean, I don't know if it's available and we want to have that with updates, but I don't know how often outside of just this one, like you said, for the connectivity, like how many emails that would be. And
yeah, that's true. I don't want to micromanage because I trust LB, but I think I heard, did the mayor?
Oh, yes.
I was going to jump in there for on a couple of points. One is, one of the biggest frustrations that people have is that government takes too long to get projects done. So I think this gives us some agility to move projects along. On that same point, I trust our borough manager to make the right decisions. We hire her to do that, and I say this as a compliment. She is sometimes frustratingly frugal, so I have no fear that she's going to would overspend by approving change order after change order, and that it would only be used when necessary to truly move a project along. So I'm comfortable with the motion as it is. Second, on the earlier issue of the opening of this skate park, and we can discuss this further and outside the scope of this meeting, but I'm of the opinion that once the safety measures are in place that need to be in place at the park are there, that it makes little sense to keep a skate spot closed when it can be used. Let the skaters skate. That's all.
I have no reason to make an amendment to the motion. I will support it.
Okay, we had a thorough discussion on that one. So good. This is a great night of thorough discussions. If there's no other comments, then we have a motion and a second. And call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
That concludes my report.
Okay, and we are on to Public Works.
I have one motion tonight. Borough, I'm asking for the approval or Borough Council to approve to enter into an engineering services contract with Gannett Fleming Incorporated to prepare a biosolids management plan for the Carlisle Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant for not to exceed the cost of $82,000, subject to the Borough Solicitor's review and approval of the service contract.
We have a motion for an engineering services contract with Gannett Fleming. Do we have a second?
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Do we have any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The motion passes.
That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. And the last one, I think, for the night, we have sustainability and community planning.
Thank you, Ms. Deputy Mayor. I have 4 items tonight. 2 of them are very related. The first one is I move that council adopt an ordinance to vacate 7 streets and alleys at the 200 block of H Street and the 1300 block of Northwest Street.
We have a motion.
I'm sorry, before there's a second, I think there's an alternative motion that was provided.
I don't think we've gotten to that one yet. This is a.
Okay,
This is it.
Oh.
D1.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, I strike my previous motion and would like to make a new motion that Borough consider tabling an ordinance to vacate 7 streets and alleys at the 200 block of H Street and the 1300 block of Northwest Street. The ordinance will be considered at Council's December 8th, 2022 Council meeting. Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
There's been a motion to table the vacation of 7 streets and alleys. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? I guess there is no, we don't have further discussion on tabling, or we do?
That was, this request came at the request of the applicant because of an issue involving notice for the ordinance.
Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Thank you. And the next 2 are related to the same item. So I make a motion that the council table consideration of the plan at the request of the applicant.
We have a motion to table the request of the application from the applicant. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
And I approve that, I make a motion that council approve the applicant's request for an extension of time for council to act on the plan to February 22nd, 2023.
There's a motion to extend the
The applicant's extension of time for council to act on the plan to
the
February.
extension of time to act on for the applicant. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank
I
you.
actually don't know who's second. Any further discussion on this? All right.
Oh,
sorry.
we need a vote.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. The motion passes.
And my final item is not related to this project. I move that council direct the borough councilor or the borough solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance to amend chapter 226 and 255 to provide for one or more assistant zoning officers to perform the functions of the zoning officer.
We have a motion for the borough solicitor to draft and advertise for positions of assisting zoning officers. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. On to new business. This is a section for citizens who would like to address council on any matter relating to borough government. Anyone in the audience? Anyone on Zoom? It's your second chance. All right.
I do want to recognize Ms. Hamilton. I apologize you came all the way out here and everything was tabled. I applaud your engagement with the process. You're always welcome here. We love to see you.
Please enjoy our conversations and you're welcome to the podium at any time. All right, so we're going to move on to reports from council members and staff. We'll start down here on the end.
No new reports, thank you.
Okay.
I have a few updates from Dickinson.
Great.
The first is that the International Climate Symposium we hosted last month was a success. It featured 50 speakers and over 3,000 people from 52 countries registered for the event. In addition, Tony Boston joined the Dickinson community on October 24th as our first Chief Diversity Officer. And as part of President Jones' vision for the college, Dickinson also removed its application fee. So this eliminates a barrier to entry at Dickinson and makes the college accessible to more students each year. We're also very excited that Denim Coffee celebrated its grand opening at the Quarry on October 28th. It supports a local business, and we're very excited to have them on campus. And lastly, as I mentioned last month, Dickinson Votes publicized the election season across campus through 2 successful registration drives, and their work continued on Election Day this Tuesday. They welcomed voters to the polls at Bosley Memorial Library. So that concludes my updates.
Okay. Councilor Mellon?
I just want to commend the Parks and Rec Department and everybody involved in putting on an amazing Halloween parade. It was really great. It was very well attended. It's one of the best ones we've had in a long time. So good job.
I have nothing further this evening.
Just briefly wanted to thank our county employees on their efforts this past week with the election. They were and always do a great job, and then all the folks that volunteered at polling locations, making sure folks had the ability to vote and had a smooth election this year. So thank you to all of them, and then to council and all of staff. We won't meet again until after Thanksgiving, so I hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday. Thanks.
I was just going to say the same thing about the parade, so thank you. It's my favorite event. Not like I'm supposed to have a favorite, but it is my favorite, and it's always awesome, and you all do a great job. So keep going.
Just one item. Next week is the PML, Pennsylvania Municipal League Sustainability Conference. They have 1 or 2 every year. Everyone I've been to has been very good. I will be attending virtually. It's at Villanova University. The agenda looked really very relevant to many of the projects we're considering, and I look forward to sort of educating everybody as best I can from what I will learn next week. Thank you.
I just have one item. I know with Thanksgiving coming, and I'd like to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody also. But also, as we talked about, or as the mayor brought up about Small Business Saturday, I would like to remind everybody to please not to forget about the small Black-owned businesses. There are more than a few of them. You can reach out to the chamber, but there are some. There's B&L Dogs. There's a new, sort of still new restaurant called Speezy's. And I haven't been there, but my son claims that the food is, what did he say? The bomb. Um, yeah, he said it was the bomb. There's newborn skin, great skincare. I mean, there are so many. There's mood swings at the vault. I ask that you are the two young ladies who are in there and they're, looking to market some more. They would love for people to utilize the space. So please feel free to step in there. I just want you to remember that these businesses are here. They need everyone's support. So please don't forget about them as you're out doing your thing, even if it's just going to get something to eat. But please remember them all. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Mayor, it's someone else has to remind me
That,
that he's still there.
that's
I'm so sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. I don't have anything. I was just going to mention some of the same things that everybody else had. The climate symposium was fantastic. Thank you to Parks and Rec again for the Halloween parade. Another annual congratulations to Cumberland County Bureau of Elections for pulling off another election without incident, despite over the last several years the challenges that there have been throughout the state and the nation.
Okay. Do you have anything?
Just like to say thank you to my terrific staff for hanging in there during the 2023 budget development. We start as early as July and are just now concluding in preparation of next week's budget hearings. It's a huge endeavor, and I couldn't do it without every one of them at that table and over there. So I really just want to thank them all for their efforts. And we'll see you next week for the budget hearing. And I think that's all I have. I don't know, staff, anyone wish to bring anything forward? No? Okay.
Okay, well, before I conclude, I would like to wish Chief a happy Marine Corps birthday, and to all the Marines, happy Marine Corps birthday. And I believe that we are adjourned.